Hi, this is Steve Teakin with Burgess & Nyepel, and I'm pleased to give the Policy Board an update on the safety study for Cabell and Wayne counties. The primary purpose and goals of this study are to create a safer transportation network for both motorized and non-motorized modes of transportation. The focus is primarily on the urbanized areas of Cabell and Wayne counties. We will be identifying crash trends and high crash locations so that then we can come back and recommend infrastructure improvements and potentially other strategies to try to mitigate the high crash locations, especially great crashes with high severity or fatal crashes. And then ultimately we want to prioritize the improvements and strategies so that Kiowa can then include those in their future planning efforts and start to include projects in their TIP to address these high crash locations. The project approach starts with a crash data review and a trends analysis, and I'll share a little bit of that information with you in this update. Then we will dive into a high-level evaluation and screening of high crash locations throughout the two counties. And this high-level evaluation is to bring out the locations that appear to have the highest number of crashes and the worst severities, so that then the next step we can dig into do a deeper dive into those locations with a more detailed review and prioritization of those high crash locations. Then with the locations with the greatest potential for improvement and the biggest problem then will be reviewed more closely, and countermeasures will be identified and evaluated for those locations that should lead to recommended strategies and infrastructure improvements. And then ultimately we will have an implementation plan that brings it all together and identifies who, when, where, and how much money these different improvements could cost and how they should be moved forward. As you can see, right in the middle of our process is stakeholder and public engagement. And this is a very important piece. We know the people that live and work in the communities really know what the biggest issues are. So we really want to have an engagement throughout, and so that when we ultimately have recommendations, we have buy-in from the local governments, from the public, and other important stakeholders in the process. As far as a timeline goes, the process is really almost a 2-year process over 2 fiscal years. However, what we're going to do is keep the public and stakeholder involvement process fairly succinct in the middle of the process. So from about May to the beginning of December, we will be engaging the stakeholders. We'll have 3 different meetings. The first one is going to be scheduled for May 23rd, we believe, and we'll meet 3 times. And then towards the end of January, we'll be delivering a draft report with recommendations, and we should get that all finalized by next spring. So just a little preview on the crash trends. In general, crashes in the two counties are trending up, but not at an alarming rate, trending up. And even the 2017 data, which is the last year data is available, you can see there's a reduction in crashes that year from previous years, but a general trend up. As far as the types of crashes and fatalities and injuries of occupants, 2017 was the worst year in terms of fatalities with the data we had, although those numbers can bounce up and down throughout the years. On the positive side, serious injuries are actually significantly down since 2013. Similar to most locations, the at-fault driver tends to be, or statistically is more likely to be a male, and then the younger the age, the more likely they are to be involved as an at-fault driver. The most frequent crash types, rear ends is the most frequent, especially in the urban areas. That's where a lot of those happen. Luckily, most of those aren't serious crashes. But then you have the angle accidents, which often happen at intersections that are still a significant number of crashes in the area. We've got fixed object and other crashes that are related to people leaving their lane or running off the road. Looking at the fatal crashes, as you would expect, head-on crashes is 23% of those is a significant source of fatal crashes, but the fixed object crashes are actually the highest percentage of those crashes, and those are typically run off the road, hit a fixed object like a tree or a pole, or something else, usually at higher speeds. But then angle crashes also at intersections and driveways can become a significant source of fatal crashes. Serious injury crashes follow some of the same patterns, except you'll see more rear ends and more angles with the serious injury crashes that happen at intersections, which don't ultimately result in fatalities, but are serious crashes. And then locations for fatal and serious injury crashes. Huntington just has the most traffic, obviously, so it's going to have the highest number, but you can see the other locations where fatal and serious injury crashes occurred. And that's all the data I have today, and that's the update. Thank you for your attention.